When Gemini chooses the path of vengeance, the cosmos itself seems to shift, for this sign does not strike with brute force nor with predictable movements. Their destruction unfolds like a storm of winds, invisible yet undeniable, carrying whispers sharper than blades and shadows that multiply until they overwhelm the unprepared. Governed by Mercury, master of communication, they wield words like celestial daggers, sliding past armor and striking at the vulnerable spaces of the soul. Their retribution does not roar with fire but pierces with intelligence, unraveling illusions, exposing truths, and dismantling facades with surgical precision. To be destroyed by Gemini is not to be broken in one sudden blow, but to be taken apart piece by piece in a labyrinth of contradictions and revelations. They plant doubts with the subtlety of a shadow at dawn, shifting perspectives until certainty dissolves into confusion. They know how to turn the mind against itself, to make silence heavier than screams, to let indifference carve deeper than rage. Their vengeance carries the echo of duality, as if two warriors fight from different angles at once, one speaking with light and the other with darkness, leaving no space for defense. The power of Gemini's revenge lies not only in the attack itself but in the timing. Like air, they vanish when least expected and return when vigilance is lowered, striking when the wound has almost healed, reopening it with calculated brilliance. They are masters of rhythm, delivering punishment not in a flood, but in waves that weaken foundations over time. Their destruction is never clumsy. It is a dance of intellect and intuition, a weaving of cosmic patterns that ensures the target cannot escape the inevitability of the fall. They are not fueled by blind fury but by the cold clarity of memory, storing every slight, every betrayal, every word spoken in arrogance. Unlike other signs that burn quickly, Gemini waits with patience disguised as distraction, hiding the storm behind laughter, conversation, and brilliance. When they decide to unleash their vengeance, it arrives not as chaos but as an orchestration of fate, each move echoing with the precision of celestial alignment. Their duality makes their vengeance more formidable, for one side disarms with charm while the other strikes with ruthless intellect. They can craft illusions that lure their adversary into vulnerability, making them believe they are forgiven, even admired, before tearing away the veil in a moment of devastating exposure. They can shift between tenderness and cruelty in a breath, leaving their target unable to grasp which is the mask and which is the truth. The destruction Gemini brings is also karmic in nature, as if the universe itself uses them as a vessel of balance. When wronged, they do not simply retaliate for themselves. They carry the weight of cosmic justice, delivering lessons that linger long after the clash. To face Gemini's vengeance is to face the mirror of one's own flaws, reflected back with merciless clarity. It is to feel the air stripped of breath, to be confronted with truths too sharp to ignore, to walk away scarred not just in pride but in essence. In the end, Gemini's revenge is not merely about breaking an enemy but about transforming the battlefield entirely. They do not just destroy, they dismantle illusions, burn bridges in silence, and rewrite the narrative in their favor. What remains after their storm is not just defeat but a hollow awareness of how fragile one truly is under the gaze of a mind that cannot be caged, of a spirit that commands both shadow and light. Their vengeance becomes legend not because of its fury, but because of its brilliance, leaving echoes in the soul of those who dared to betray them, a reminder that the winds of Gemini may seem playful until they rise into a tempest that no power can withstand. The vengeance of Gemini is woven into the very fabric of duality, for they are not a single voice nor a single force, but a constellation of shifting patterns that few can comprehend. When they rise to destroy, they do not follow a straight line. Their retribution curves and bends like the wind itself, striking from unexpected angles and slipping through cracks left unattended. Their strength lies in their ability to think in dimensions others cannot perceive, to anticipate movements before they unfold, and to use both reason and instinct as twin blades in the same hand. They embody the paradox of softness and ferocity, of laughter masking the thunder hidden behind it, making their vengeance both beautiful and terrifying in its execution. To be the target of Gemini's wrath is to face a mind that has no boundaries. They do not simply attack the body or the reputation. They dismantle the essence of identity itself, targeting beliefs, confidence, and the fragile scaffolding that holds one's sense of power. They are alchemists of chaos, transmuting pain into strategy and betrayal into clarity, using every fragment of memory as material for their craft. Their destruction is never random, for even their chaos has order, and the lines they weave in their vengeance trace constellations that only they can fully read. They strike in silence as much as in words. Silence from Gemini is never emptiness. It is an abyss filled with echoes of what they choose not to say. In that silence lies a heavier punishment than shouting ever could achieve, because it leaves their adversary suspended in doubt, questioning every gesture, every absence, every glance withheld. Their vengeance becomes psychological warfare, a storm of uncertainty that gnaws away at stability until nothing remains but fractured certainty. Their duality also allows them to be mercilessly adaptive. If force is needed, they know how to strike swiftly and without hesitation. If subtlety is more effective, they can vanish into shadow, weaving rumors, truths, and illusions until the target finds themselves trapped in a web they never saw being spun. Gemini can fight in the open field or from the hidden corners, making them unpredictable opponents who cannot be contained by any single strategy. This is the power of air, ungraspable and ever-moving, and to face it is to try and cage the wind. Yet their vengeance is not blind destruction but carries an almost mythic undertone of justice. It is as if Mercury itself whispers through them, commanding that imbalance must be corrected, that deception must be met with revelation, and betrayal with consequence. They are instruments of cosmic irony, delivering blows that are not only painful but meaningful, shaping destiny in ways that ripple far beyond the initial act. When they destroy, it is not just to punish but to awaken, forcing the other to confront the truths they tried to bury, exposing vulnerabilities they thought hidden beneath layers of pride. There is also a timelessness to Gemini's revenge. They may not strike immediately, but when they do, the weight of accumulated memory gives their act an almost fated quality. It is as though the stars themselves waited for alignment, for the moment when the threads of destiny tighten around the one who wronged them. In that moment, their vengeance does not feel like an act of personal rage, but like the unfolding of a cosmic script, inevitable and unstoppable. The enemy is left not only broken but with the haunting sensation that the downfall was written long before it arrived. Their destruction is not confined to one level. It echoes through the emotional, mental, and spiritual planes. Emotionally, they can twist affection into indifference, leaving coldness where warmth once lived. Mentally, they can plant doubts that unravel entire systems of belief, collapsing foundations built over years. Spiritually, they can act as mirrors that reveal darkness the other tried to ignore, forcing them to carry the weight of their own shadow. This multidimensional strike makes their vengeance unforgettable, for it reaches deeper than the surface and reshapes the very being of the one who faces it. What makes their revenge legendary is not only the devastation it causes, but the rebirth it symbolizes for Gemini. Through destruction, they reaffirm their mastery over duality, proving that they cannot be underestimated or dismissed. They emerge from the act not diminished but renewed, as if the very act of retribution fuels their own transformation. Their vengeance is not just the end of something for the other, it is a new beginning for themselves, a declaration that they are untouchable, that they are both the storm and the calm after it, both the blade and the hand that wields it. In the end, the destruction Gemini brings is a reminder of the cosmic truth they embody, that light and shadow are inseparable, that creation and destruction are twins, and that justice often arrives in unexpected forms. Their vengeance, born of intellect and intuition, leaves no battlefield untouched and no heart unscarred. It is not merely an act of anger, but an epic movement of destiny, leaving behind silence where noise once reigned and clarity where deception once thrived. And in that silence, in that clarity, the legacy of their power endures like the eternal winds that sweep across the heavens. The vengeance of Gemini carries within it a quality that transcends ordinary retaliation, for theirs is not a force bound by a single shape or direction. It is a phenomenon that mirrors the air element they embody, unseen yet unstoppable, shifting yet precise, calm on the surface but harboring the potential for a hurricane. When their spirit is stirred into the realm of retribution, Their dual nature becomes both weapon and shield, allowing them to weave strategies that are as intricate as they are devastating. Unlike the straightforward vengeance of fire or the unyielding persistence of earth, Gemini's destruction unfolds like a celestial riddle, impossible to predict and harder still to counter. One of the most formidable aspects of Gemini's vengeance lies in their mastery of perception. They are not content with simply striking the surface. They unravel the very lens through which reality is perceived. They know how to bend perspective, how to make allies question loyalty, how to turn whispers into truths and truths into doubts. This manipulation of perception does not rely on brute strength but on the subtle art of influence, where even a glance, a pause, or a carefully placed word becomes an arrow capable of piercing through the strongest armor. To stand against their vengeance is to risk being cornered not by violence but by the unbearable weight of collective opinion, rumor, and revelation that Gemini commands with cosmic precision. There is also a mercurial patience in the way Gemini exacts destruction. They do not always strike at once, for they understand that true devastation requires timing as sharp as a blade. Their mind is capable of waiting in silence, observing, collecting fragments of information, mapping the weaknesses of their target until the moment arrives when everything collapses at once. This patience is deceptive because Gemini outwardly appears restless and ever-moving, yet beneath that energy lies a core of calculation as ancient as the constellations themselves. When they finally act, it is with the inevitability of fate, leaving the adversary stunned not only by the blow itself but by the realization that it was foreseen long before it was delivered. Gemini's duality grants them the power to attack from contrasting directions at once. They can be light and darkness in the same breath, offering compassion with one hand while withdrawing it with the other, creating an unbearable dissonance in those who face them. This dual assault destabilizes even the strongest of opponents because it leaves them unable to trust what they see or feel. They may believe themselves forgiven, only to discover forgiveness was the mask hiding the sharpest strike. They may expect anger and instead be met with disarming calm, only for that calm to reveal itself as the silence of a storm about to break. It is this unpredictability that makes Gemini's vengeance legendary, for no preparation can anticipate a mind that thrives in contradictions. Beyond personal retribution, Gemini embodies the cosmic role of a messenger. When they destroy, they do not simply act for themselves but channel the justice of the stars, carrying the message that imbalance cannot endure. Their vengeance often forces lessons that destiny itself demands, lessons that cannot be ignored because they are carved into the psyche with precision and permanence. In this sense, their destruction is transformative, not only leaving ruins but also shaping a new order from those ruins. Their adversaries do not simply lose. They are altered, confronted with truths they cannot escape, forced to acknowledge the shadows they tried to deny. What makes Gemini's vengeance even more profound is its ability to touch not just individuals but entire networks of connection. As masters of communication, they know how to ripple their influence outward, ensuring that the downfall of one echoes through the circles around them. Their destruction spreads like wind carrying sparks across dry fields, igniting revelations and conflicts that extend beyond the initial target. This expansiveness makes their vengeance far-reaching, ensuring that the consequences of crossing them are not confined to a single wound but become a lasting mark on the landscape of relationships and reputations. Their retribution also bears the mark of transformation for themselves. In choosing to destroy, Gemini does not descend into chaos. They rise into clarity. Each act of vengeance becomes a rite of passage, refining their mastery over duality, proving their strength not only to others but to themselves. They emerge from the ashes of conflict sharpened, as if destruction has purified them of weakness and clothed them once more in brilliance. Their enemies may fall, but Gemini ascends, their spirit more untouchable than before, their aura magnified by the knowledge that they have faced betrayal and turned it into power. To be destroyed by Gemini is to be confronted by the truth that no fortress is impenetrable, no mask eternal, no lie unbreakable. Their vengeance serves as a mirror in which illusions are shattered, exposing fragility that cannot be hidden. It is the cosmic reminder that air, though invisible, is the breath of life and the force of storms, and that those who underestimate it do so at their peril. Their destruction is not loud for the sake of noise, but epic in its quiet inevitability, like the silent shift of the heavens that changes the course of entire ages. In the vast story of the zodiac, Gemini's vengeance stands as a testament to the power of intellect, adaptability, and duality when wielded with purpose. It is not the rage of an untamed fire, nor the weight of an immovable mountain, nor the flood of relentless waters. It is the cunning brilliance of air, unseen but inescapable, shaping destinies with whispers and shadows. Their destruction endures in memory not only because it breaks, but because it reveals, because it transforms, because it proves that in the hands of Gemini, even vengeance becomes a cosmic act of creation and annihilation bound together as one. The destruction that Gemini unleashes when they seek vengeance carries with it a quality unlike that of any other sign, for their essence is not bound by a single direction or force. Their nature is mercurial, ever-shifting, capable of manifesting as the gentle breeze or the catastrophic gale. And this same duality transforms their vengeance into a cosmic instrument of both dismantling and revelation. To underestimate this power is to mistake movement for distraction and lightness for fragility, when in truth, these very traits conceal the infinite adaptability that makes their revenge so formidable. Gemini's retaliation often begins long before it is seen. Their mind, sharpened by Mercury's influence, captures details others overlook, recording words, gestures, and silences until they become part of a greater map of understanding. Within this map, they recognize not only the flaws of their adversary but also the exact paths that lead to collapse. They do not act with blunt force, because force alone is predictable. Instead, they turn knowledge into a weapon, bending information and memory until the enemy is left exposed not through external assault but through the very weight of their own contradictions. This is the brilliance of air, invisible yet present everywhere, surrounding and infiltrating, dismantling from within rather than without. What deepens the impact of Gemini's destruction is the way it threads through multiple layers of existence at once. They can dismantle relationships by shifting perception, they can destabilize confidence by exposing truths, and they can silence arrogance by speaking with the authority of undeniable reality. Their vengeance is not bound to the material world alone. It moves through the intellectual and spiritual planes, leaving marks that cannot be seen yet are felt profoundly. Their adversaries are left with the sense that they have not only been opposed by a person but by a principle, by a cosmic current that chose Gemini as its messenger. The versatility of their nature allows them to craft vengeance that fits each circumstance with precision. Sometimes they move like shadows, infiltrating quietly, altering events without revealing their hand until the outcome is irreversible. At other times, they strike with lightning speed, their words flashing with the force of revelation, leaving no room for defense. This capacity to shift from subtle to direct, from patient to immediate, makes them elusive enemies, impossible to anticipate. To face them is to face unpredictability itself, for they can be many things at once and none of them for long, changing shape as easily as the sky changes with the wind. What often goes unrecognized about Gemini's vengeance is its poetic nature. They do not destroy without meaning. Their actions often mirror the betrayal or injustice inflicted upon them, creating a form of cosmic symmetry. The downfall they orchestrate often reflects the very shadow their adversary tried to cast upon them, turning the harm back with multiplied force. In this way, their vengeance feels destined, as though the universe itself has balanced the scales through their hand. This poetic justice leaves a deeper wound, because it carries the unmistakable weight of inevitability, as if the punishment was written into the stars long before it was enacted. Their ability to weave words into weapons gives them an advantage no physical power could equal. Language becomes the storm through which they dismantle certainty, for a single phrase delivered by Gemini can echo louder than 1,000 shouts. They know how to use irony, truth, and revelation in ways that burn without fire, and they understand that silence itself can be sharper than speech. This mastery over expression means that their vengeance does not end when the confrontation does. It continues to echo in the minds of their adversaries, replaying until it reshapes the way they see themselves. Few forces are as destructive as the realization of one's own exposed weakness, and Gemini ensures that realization cannot be escaped. In the wider story of the zodiac, their destruction serves as a reminder that air, though intangible, commands all life. Breath itself is air, and storms are air, and without it, nothing endures. Gemini embodies this truth, showing that what seems elusive is often the most essential, that what cannot be touched is often what holds the most power. When they rise in vengeance, they remind the world that adaptability and intellect can be as devastating as brute strength, and that the most powerful storms are those that cannot be seen until they are upon you. Ultimately, Gemini's revenge does not leave only ruin but transformation. They do not destroy merely for satisfaction. They destroy in a way that forces awakening, both for their adversaries and for themselves. Through vengeance, they reaffirm their dual nature, proving that they are not to be confined to one role or underestimated for their lightness. They emerge renewed, carrying with them the knowledge that they can rise above betrayal, turning pain into wisdom and opposition into power. Their adversaries, meanwhile, are left with scars that teach them respect for forces they once dismissed. This is the epic truth of Gemini's destruction. It is not random chaos but a cosmic dance between light and shadow, a weaving of destiny that ensures balance is restored. Their vengeance is the wind that clears the air, the storm that reshapes the land, the invisible force that alters the course of events forever. To witness it is to understand that Gemini is not only the bearer of duality but the guardian of transformation, capable of dismantling with the same brilliance with which they create, and in their destruction lies a power that echoes across the heavens. When Gemini chooses to destroy through vengeance, there is an artistry within their fury that transcends mere retaliation. Their connection to Mercury gives them dominion over thought, speech, and movement, and so their vengeance carries the mark of swiftness and intelligence rather than blunt force. They are not like the warrior who charges with sword drawn, but rather the strategist who turns the battlefield itself into a weapon. Their destruction is often invisible until it is too late, because they do not always confront directly. Instead, they manipulate currents of energy, whispers, timing, and perception until their adversary is undone by forces they cannot trace back to their source. This indirectness is not weakness but the genius of air, for the wind erodes mountains not by clashing against them once, but by moving against them ceaselessly, patiently, with persistence disguised as lightness. The vengeance of Gemini also thrives on their ability to multiply perspectives. They can look at a situation from angles inaccessible to others, finding cracks in armor and inconsistencies in words that most would overlook. Their mind does not remain fixed on one strategy. It shifts constantly, flowing around obstacles, finding openings, adapting in real time. This flexibility makes their vengeance especially potent, for even when resistance arises, they change their form, transforming from storm to breeze, from silence to echo, until the other is disoriented and defeated without ever truly understanding how it happened. Their dual nature becomes their greatest ally, for they can embody both attacker and deceiver, both comforter and executioner, leaving their enemy with no solid ground to stand upon. An often overlooked dimension of Gemini's destruction lies in their influence over memory. They do not merely wound in the present. They plant ideas that linger long after the moment has passed. Their words have the power to haunt, to return in silence, to replay in the mind of their adversary until self-doubt corrodes confidence. Unlike other forms of vengeance that fade once the battle is over, Gemini's continues long after, because it seeps into thought and imagination, ensuring that the punishment does not end with action but endures as a presence in the very consciousness of those who wrong them. It is in this unseen endurance that their vengeance becomes legendary, for it survives beyond confrontation, carried in the mind like a scar that never heals. They also possess a rare ability to turn the networks of others into weapons. Because Gemini understands communication as a cosmic force, they know how to let their influence ripple outward. One revelation, one phrase carefully delivered at the right time, can set entire chains of relationships trembling. They can cause isolation without lifting a hand, watching as alliances fracture, as trust disintegrates, as reputations collapse under the weight of exposure. This power is not simple gossip but a calculated orchestration of information, aligning truth and illusion in a way that devastates on multiple fronts. Their vengeance, then, is not confined to the individual but spreads like a storm across entire landscapes, altering dynamics and ensuring that no sanctuary remains. What deepens the epic quality of their destruction is that Gemini never wields vengeance solely as an expression of anger. Their actions are layered with meaning, carrying symbolic weight that feels larger than the conflict itself. Their retaliation often reveals a hidden truth, a karmic balance, or a cosmic lesson that had been ignored. In this sense, their vengeance becomes mythic, embodying the archetype of the trickster who restores balance through cunning rather than brute force. The enemy may fall, but in their fall is also a revelation of their own weakness, arrogance, or dishonesty, illuminated by Gemini's sharp perception. Thus, the destruction serves both as punishment and as a mirror, exposing what was hidden and forcing recognition of truths long denied. There is also a certain theatricality to their vengeance, a quality born from their connection to expression and narrative. They understand timing, irony, and symbolism, and often their revenge carries with it a sense of poetic justice that feels orchestrated by the universe itself. It is not uncommon for their adversaries to feel as though destiny has turned against them, as if the stars conspired to deliver consequence through Gemini's hand. This sense of inevitability magnifies the impact, transforming personal retribution into something cosmic, something that cannot be dismissed as chance. In this way, Gemini's destruction becomes legend, whispered not only as an act of wrath, but as a story that outlives the moment, a tale of balance restored by the winds of duality. Another overlooked dimension of their vengeance is its transformative power over themselves. Each act of destruction refines Gemini's understanding of their own duality, sharpening their awareness of their capacity to embody both chaos and clarity. They rise from each conflict renewed, shedding the weight of betrayal and stepping forward with greater mastery over their own forces. Their vengeance does not diminish them, it fortifies them, turning scars into symbols of resilience, turning opposition into fuel for further growth. What may appear as destruction from the outside is, within them, a process of rebirth, a reaffirmation of their sovereignty over shadow and light alike. To encounter Gemini's vengeance is to encounter the vast power of the element they embody. It is the air that cannot be seen yet surrounds all, the wind that can soothe or annihilate, the current that carries life and the storm that reshapes worlds. Their destruction is not chaos without purpose but transformation born of necessity, a force that teaches respect for what cannot be grasped or contained. They remind the cosmos that the invisible often holds the greatest strength, that duality is not weakness but mastery, and that vengeance, when wielded by Gemini, is not merely the end of one path but the beginning of a new order written in the language of the stars. When Gemini rises to destroy through vengeance, there is a sacred and mysterious layer that often goes unnoticed, one that elevates their retribution beyond the personal into the archetypal. This sign, ruled by Mercury, exists between realms, acting as a bridge between the divine and the mortal, the visible and the invisible, and so their vengeance is not bound to a single plane of existence. When they strike, it is not only the physical world that trembles, but also the mental and spiritual dimensions, creating a wave of consequence that resonates across multiple realities at once. Their destruction becomes a rite of passage, both for themselves and for the one who dared to provoke them, as though they are enacting a cosmic play where balance is restored and truths are unveiled. There is a secret quality to Gemini's vengeance that resembles initiation. Those who fall beneath it are not merely punished. They are confronted with the raw essence of themselves in a way that cannot be avoided. This confrontation is brutal and merciless, for Gemini does not soften the mirror they hold up, nor do they offer the comfort of illusions. They strip away the masks others cling to and expose the hidden face that even the self fears to acknowledge. This is why their destruction leaves such a deep mark, because it is not about removing external possessions or reputations alone, but about forcing the adversary to meet the darkness within. Few have the strength to face such exposure, and it is this psychological devastation that makes Gemini's vengeance unparalleled. They also command the element of surprise with uncanny mastery. Unlike signs that broadcast their fury, Gemini conceals theirs beneath wit, laughter, or an almost playful demeanor. This concealment is deliberate, for they understand that the unexpected multiplies the impact of their strike. By disarming with charm or lulling their adversary into a false sense of security, they set the stage for devastation that arrives suddenly, like lightning splitting the sky without warning. This lightning, however, is not random but aimed with the precision of thought, striking at the exact place where it will cause the greatest collapse. In this way, their vengeance mirrors the sudden revelations of Mercury, bringing knowledge that disrupts and destroys but also clarifies what can no longer be denied. Another dimension of their destruction lies in their ability to move through extremes. They can destroy with fire-like intensity in one moment and with icy detachment in the next, confusing their adversary with shifts that make resistance impossible. To fight against Gemini's vengeance is to fight against change itself, for they are never still, never bound, never predictable. This restlessness ensures that their strategy cannot be anticipated, and so the one they target is left chasing shadows, defending against attacks that change shape before they can be countered. It is this elusive quality that gives Gemini their mythic strength, for no force can cage the wind or silence the whisper of destiny carried upon it. What also magnifies the epic power of Gemini's vengeance is their deep connection to timing. They are masters of seizing the moment when impact will be greatest, often waiting until arrogance has reached its peak or until the false structure of their adversary teeters on the edge of collapse. When they deliver their blow, it lands not only with strength but with inevitability, as though fate itself guided their hand. This ability to strike at the exact moment when the universe demands correction gives their destruction the aura of destiny fulfilled, leaving their adversaries feeling not only defeated but doomed. It is this sense of inevitability that transforms their vengeance into legend, remembered long after the dust has settled. Gemini also has the power to weave dual realities in their destruction. They can create the illusion of forgiveness while planting the seeds of downfall. They can appear detached while orchestrating storms in silence. This ability to live in contradiction allows them to dismantle their target from both sides at once, like a double-edged sword that cuts while it conceals. Their duality is not chaos but mastery, a cosmic reminder that truth itself has two faces, and they are the keepers of both. To be destroyed by Gemini is to realize that every path of resistance is already accounted for, every escape already blocked, because they exist on both sides of every choice. On a spiritual level, their vengeance becomes an act of transformation. They are not content with leaving ruins. They force rebirth through destruction, burning away illusions so that only truth remains. This transformative quality makes their vengeance a paradox. Devastating yet purifying, cruel yet enlightening, destructive yet creative. The one who suffers at their hands may lose pride, power, or standing, but in the ashes is also the chance for renewal, though that renewal is rarely sought willingly. In this way, Gemini embodies the cosmic truth that air clears as much as it destroys, that storms bring clarity once they have passed, and that vengeance itself can be the hand of destiny reshaping the course of a life. In the mythic language of astrology, Gemini's vengeance is a reminder that duality is not weakness but the ultimate strength. To hold both sides of every truth, to wield both chaos and clarity, to move between silence and revelation, is to command a power that cannot be matched by those bound to a single nature. Their destruction is the work of a sign that carries within it the eternal dance of opposites, and when they choose to destroy, they do so as emissaries of that dance, bringing endings that also contain beginnings and punishments that also contain lessons. Theirs is not vengeance for its own sake but vengeance that becomes epic, woven into the fabric of destiny itself, echoing through the stars as proof that the winds of Gemini can never be silenced, and that those who challenge them do so at the cost of facing the eternal and unstoppable force of duality incarnate. When Gemini rises into the domain of destruction through vengeance, there is an element of their power that goes beyond what most signs could ever command. It is the alchemy of thought and air, a force that transforms the invisible into the undeniable, the fleeting into the eternal. Their vengeance is never a single act but a sequence of movements that ripple outward, often unnoticed at first, until they gather such strength that they become unstoppable. To understand their destruction is to understand that Gemini is the embodiment of multiplicity, and when they turn this multiplicity toward retaliation, they are capable of striking on more fronts than any adversary could ever defend. One of the deeper aspects of their vengeance is the way it disorients time itself. Gemini has an uncanny ability to make the past suddenly alive again, drawing forth forgotten words or actions and weaving them into the present moment with devastating accuracy. What was once dismissed resurfaces like a ghost, undeniable and sharper for having been buried. In this way, their revenge is not limited to the now. It stretches backward, reclaiming memory, and forward, planting seeds that will grow into consequences long after the confrontation is over. Their destruction becomes timeless, echoing in cycles that the other cannot escape. They also wield the gift of dual voices, a symbol of their celestial twins. One voice can soothe while the other condemns. One can lure with promises, while the other exposes with truth. This duplicity makes their vengeance inescapable because it attacks both the heart and the mind simultaneously, confusing the adversary with contradictions that cannot be resolved. While one part of Gemini dismantles trust, the other dismantles pride, and the combined effect is total collapse. Few forces are as disarming as kindness paired with cruelty, forgiveness paired with exposure, and Gemini knows how to use these contrasts with precision. There is a theatrical brilliance to the way they destroy, for Gemini understands life as narrative, and they write their vengeance into a story that others will remember. They know how to orchestrate irony so that the downfall of their adversary carries the unmistakable taste of poetic justice. Their retribution does not appear random but meaningful, as if it were the only ending that could ever have been written. This capacity to frame destruction as destiny makes their vengeance epic, not merely in power but in symbolism, transforming the personal into the mythic. Their mastery of communication allows them to dismantle entire structures without lifting a hand. A phrase spoken at the right moment, a truth revealed to the right ears, a silence maintained until the other breaks. All of these become weapons sharper than steel. They can unmake reputations with the weight of words alone, because their rulership by Mercury makes them conduits of information, able to shape how reality itself is perceived. To be undone by Gemini is often to be undone by perception, for once the way others see a person has shifted, there is little that can restore it. This is why their vengeance lingers in communities and networks, spreading like wind carrying sparks until the fire consumes far more than the intended target. Another hidden quality of their destruction lies in their refusal to be confined by emotion. While other signs may allow rage or grief to consume them, Gemini steps outside of their feelings and views the situation with detached brilliance. This detachment allows them to strike with clarity rather than blindness, to orchestrate rather than to react. Their vengeance, therefore, has the precision of intellect rather than the chaos of impulse, making it more lasting and more effective. It is not passion that fuels them but understanding, and understanding is always the sharper blade. The adaptability of Gemini also ensures that their vengeance is never the same twice. Against one adversary they may move like a storm of words, against another like silence that isolates, and against another like a web of influence that erodes connections. Their ability to shapeshift ensures that no defense can prepare for them, because their method is always in motion, always evolving. This makes them cosmic tricksters in their vengeance, channeling the archetype of Mercury not only as messenger but as deceiver, ensuring that those who underestimate them fall not only by force but by irony. On a spiritual plane, Gemini's destruction carries the essence of initiation into truth. Their vengeance reveals not only the weakness of their adversary but also the lesson hidden within the conflict. They are teachers through their cruelty, forcing recognition of what was denied, unmasking the illusions that once gave comfort. Though their adversaries may despise them for it, the mark Gemini leaves is one that awakens, because it forces confrontation with reality that cannot be ignored. Their vengeance is thus paradoxical, for while it destroys, it also enlightens, burning away falsehoods so that only truth remains. In the greater cosmic order, Gemini's vengeance is not the chaos of uncontrolled wrath but the rebalancing of air itself, a force that clears as much as it devastates. They are the winds that scatter seeds after the storm, the currents that reshape landscapes, the whisper of inevitability that no mortal hand can silence. Their destruction is not confined to punishment. It is transformation disguised as ruin. Those who face it are forever changed, their pride dismantled, their illusions stripped away, their path redirected. The legacy of their vengeance lies not in the fear it creates but in the respect it demands. To be destroyed by Gemini is to witness the unstoppable force of duality in action, the truth that nothing exists in only one form and that every action has its reflection. Their vengeance is a declaration that they cannot be bound to simplicity, that their nature is vast, infinite, and impossible to predict. It is a reminder that air, though invisible, can shake the world, and that Gemini, as its embodiment, carries within them the storm and the silence, the messenger and the judge, the destroyer and the creator. In their vengeance lies a cosmic testament, that duality itself is power, and that from destruction new beginnings are born. When Gemini chooses the path of vengeance, there is an element of celestial inevitability that accompanies their actions, as though the very constellations themselves bend to amplify their reach. Beyond their mastery of words and perception lies an even deeper force, one that originates in their mutable essence. As a mutable air sign, Gemini has the rare ability to weave endings and beginnings into the same movement, so their destruction is never final in the ordinary sense but transformative, reshaping not only the adversary's world but also the balance of energies around them. Their vengeance does not merely punish, it rearranges reality so that the one who has wronged them must confront a new order of existence, one in which nothing feels as it once did. Their connection to Mercury grants them more than wit or eloquence. It gives them dominion over the crossroads of destiny. When they rise in fury, they stand at these cosmic intersections and redirect paths with a swiftness that others cannot anticipate. What once seemed certain for their adversary suddenly shifts. Doors that were open close, alliances dissolve, and opportunities turn to ash. It is not simply a loss they inflict but a rewriting of fate itself. For Gemini carries within them the script of possibility and knows how to rearrange the lines until the enemy's story collapses. This makes their vengeance uniquely disorienting, because it feels as though the entire universe has conspired to dismantle the offender's path forward. The duality within Gemini is not just about contradiction but about polarity, and when this polarity is turned against an enemy, it creates an inner tearing that is far more devastating than any external blow. They can mirror light and shadow so effectively that those who face their wrath begin to question themselves, losing clarity in a maze of reflections. The adversary may find themselves haunted by doubt, unable to discern whether Gemini's kindness is genuine or a trap, whether silence means indifference or planning, whether apparent forgiveness masks deeper ruin. This mental labyrinth is part of their cosmic arsenal, because confusion is a form of destruction that eats away at certainty until nothing stable remains. There is also a restless brilliance in how they enact their revenge. Gemini does not strike in a straight line. They circle, retreat, advance, and disperse, much like the winds they embody. Their adversaries cannot predict from which direction the next movement will come. Sometimes it is a revelation spoken aloud that dismantles a carefully built facade. Other times it is the subtle erosion of connections whispered into ears behind the scenes. At times it may even be a sudden absence, a withdrawal of energy so complete that the other collapses under the weight of isolation. Their mutability ensures that no single strategy defines them, and this unpredictability is a weapon as sharp as any blade. Beyond the battlefield of the mind and heart, Gemini's vengeance resonates with archetypal power. They are the trickster who turns hubris into downfall, the messenger of the gods who carries truths so unbearable that they scorch the soul. Their destruction often comes cloaked in irony, so that those who once mocked them fall by their own words, and those who thought themselves clever are undone by their own schemes. This cosmic irony amplifies the grandeur of their vengeance, making it feel not like mere retaliation but divine retribution written into the stars themselves. In this way, Gemini's destruction achieves a mythic dimension, transforming human conflict into a tale worthy of legend. One of the less visible but equally devastating aspects of their vengeance is the way it alters the energy of entire environments. Being an air sign, they are not limited to the personal but move through social spaces like currents of wind through a forest. Their revenge can ripple through communities, changing the way others perceive the one who wronged them, unraveling trust and shifting dynamics until isolation becomes unavoidable. This social storm is not born of malice alone but of the Gemini ability to channel thought and communication into networks that amplify their intent. Where once their adversaries stood supported, they now stand alone, surrounded by the echoes of Gemini's whispered justice. Gemini's intellect also ensures that their vengeance carries an element of teaching. Even in their most destructive acts, there is a revelation hidden within, a truth that the adversary is forced to face. They dismantle illusions not only to hurt but to awaken, tearing away the comfort of lies until only raw reality remains. In this sense, their vengeance is not chaotic but purposeful, a cosmic initiation into clarity. The pain they inflict becomes inseparable from the lesson it delivers, and while their enemies may curse them, they also cannot escape the growth forced upon them by such ruthless exposure. On a higher plane, their vengeance is a reflection of cosmic justice expressed through air. Just as storms clear the atmosphere of stagnation, Gemini's destruction clears the spiritual terrain of falsehoods, arrogance, and betrayal. They are not agents of blind rage but of recalibration, channeling energies that restore balance even through upheaval. What they break with reason, even if that reason is invisible to those caught in the storm. Their vengeance, then, is both a cleansing and a reckoning, as necessary as it is devastating. What makes their destruction truly epic is not only its effectiveness but its elegance. Gemini does not simply crush. They unravel, they rewrite, they reshape. Their vengeance is intelligent, strategic, and often so subtle that it feels inevitable rather than imposed. When the storm has passed, it is clear that nothing was random, that every strike carried meaning, and that the downfall of their adversary was woven into a larger narrative. Their destruction is never merely the end of a chapter but the beginning of a new one, written with their hands upon the cosmic script. Thus, to witness Gemini in vengeance is to witness the power of air unleashed in all its forms. The whisper that destroys certainty, the gale that scatters foundations, the storm that clears the sky, and the breath that remains when silence follows. Their destruction is a reminder that the unseen forces are the most powerful, that duality is not weakness but mastery, and that transformation often arrives cloaked in ruin. They do not simply end, they transcend, and in their transcendence, they carry the eternal truth that nothing destroyed by Gemini was ever meant to last.